let's take a deep breath. A collective deep breath for that episode. That was one of the best episodes in such a long time. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. That was one of the best episodes in such a long time. But that's usually what happens with the second to last episode of a season. And I'm saying that because we still have to think about that this is the second to last episode of season 4, really. That was crazy. We just watched season 5, episode 2, called The Preppy Murders, which gave us a whole lot of left field, I can say. It threw me for a loop. I'm ready to get started. I didn't really film my reactions like I said I might have last week, only because I felt awkward doing it, so I didn't. So we're just going to talk about it. Didn't take notes again, but there was just like 4 main storylines, and so I'm going to go storyline by storyline instead of going in order of what happened in the episode. It's just going to register in my brain better, if that makes sense. Well, there's like 5 storylines. 4.5. Okay, we're going to start with the one that had like the least amount of screen time, and that was the Cheryl and Tony storyline, which was that Cheryl wants to try and be with Tony, which I think is amazing, and she's willing to get the land that was from like Tony's ancestors back to them, which I think is so nice, and they deserve it wholeheartedly. It was their land and the Blossoms just took it over. So she goes first and tries to get all the family members to sign off on it, and they said no. So she goes and asks her mom for help, and her mom was like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And she was really trying with Tony to save that relationship. I think it really changed Cheryl, and it made Cheryl who we love today. If you go back to season 1, you weren't a fan of hers. Well, I mean, some people were. I really liked her. But she was against our main protagonist, and then she became a protagonist, and I think that's really admirable. I love who Cheryl is. She's such a strong woman, a strong lesbian woman for little girls to look up to, and I think that's awesome. And Tony's a great bisexual queen, and representation on this show can get better, but it's there. But it can get better. It will get better, hopefully. I hope. So she goes and asks her mom for help, and she goes, I'll see what I can do. Why don't you go on vacation with Tony for like a weekend? And Cheryl's like, sure. So she runs up by Tony. Tony's like, great, let's do it. And she comes and she's ready to go, and she looks at Nana, who's like crying by the fire in all black, and she goes, who died? And she goes, our whole family. And me and my mom were like, what? It was ridiculous. But her mom killed and poisoned the entire family, so that way Cheryl has full control of the Blossom Industries, like Blossom Maple Syrup Company, and she can do what she wants with it. So what she's going to do is she's going to sell a portion of the land back to the Utah's tribe, and then using that money she's going to build a new maple factory, which then can start the maple business up again for the Blossom family. And I think that's really interesting, and I hope it will be fine in the 7-year time jump that is coming up in 2 episodes. More on that later. That's the Cheryl and Tony sequence. Then we're gonna go into the Veronica, Hermosa, Hiram, Hermione situation, which started off like, oh my god, I'm scared for like all their safety, and it turned into a laughing fit. Which, before we even talk about this, let's talk about the amazing scene of Hiram going to beat up Archie. I wish it was longer, because Archie deserved it wholeheartedly. And I love when he said, because Archie cheated on Veronica with Betty. And I loved when Hiram goes, stepping out on my daughter with her best friend. What kind of man does that? The man doesn't fall far from the tree. And brings up Fred. There's so much dust, and I just lifted it all. Veronica is taking out the trash at Pop's, and these three guys, the Malloys, come up behind her, and because Hiram killed their father, so they were gonna go kill Veronica. And then Hermosa comes up from behind and kills all three of them with a gun. And she's like, it's registered, it's fine. And I was like, you just murdered 3 people. My mom made the joke that more people died in this episode than in the entire series, and that made me cackle. And there was a full serial killer. Like, what is happening? They go and talk to Hermione, being like, we need to get Hiram out of the business, because Veronica figured out that Hiram is back to his old ways, and he's saying because he just wants to stay in the business, and they're like, no, you can't do that. So Hermione's in, and Veronica and Hermosa come up with this plan to get full control of Lodge Industries, so that way Hiram can retire. And at first he says no, and he freaks out, understandably. So then they do it on their own by having him get jumped. Hermosa gets people to jump him, and he's all bloody, and I was like, oh my god. Veronica like finally talked him off the ledge, saying, this is too dangerous for you, it's dangerous for us, you need to stop. And so he finally agrees, like over breakfast, like the next day. And he goes, what would it look like? And she goes, Hermosa will take care of most of it while I'm at college, and then we'll run it together. And he goes, okay, I'm going to take a long sabbatical in the Cayman Islands. And he goes to Hermione. He's like, oh, man, Maud, doesn't that sound lovely? And he goes, and she's like, actually, I'm not coming with you. I'm going to go be a real housewife of New York, and I'm divorcing you. Like, Andy Cohen asked me that 3 years ago. And I was like, what? I was like, maybe this is how they were going to write her out initially. Which they were. I keep forgetting that. They were initially they had to write her out because at first Marisol Nichols wasn't going to come back, but then she decided to come back because they renegotiated her contract. So I think maybe this is how they were going to write her out, but then I don't know how Hiram was going to come back, because Hiram was never supposed to leave. I think he's forever going to be a villain of this town, which I kind of like. I kind of like that. And so that ends that storyline. And now we're going to go into the Archie storyline, only because I loved it so much. I did. The Archie storyline this week was fantastic. And that is because it was directly based from the first episode of season 4. So I'm going to do it briefly as possible. Okay, so Archie's like freaking out because of the video he got, and because Veronica him and Veronica are breaking up. Now Veronica is still pretending to be with him, so that way Betty and Jughead don't break up and Jughead doesn't find out. More on that later, because I am livid. I mean, I'm like really emotional about it. I'm just thinking about what they're doing to Jughead. Okay, I'll be okay. So we find out that it's gonna be the trial for the George Augustine, which is the father of the kid who hit Fred and killed him. And the judge is looking for, the defense attorney is looking for leniency, so he's looking for letters to the judge, like saying that Archie and Mary forgive him because they are the immediate family. And Archie's trying to write it, and then finally he gets a visit from George, and it's like, my son turned himself in, and they're trying him as an adult. And that's when I was like, oh my god, this poor kid. Like, and Archie's trying to reason with the guy, and then finally, and he's still freaking out, like punching everything. Like, his knuckles are bleeding. And then Mary's like, maybe we should get your Uncle Frank. I called him. Maybe he should come back. And he was like, no, we don't need his help. All this stuff. And then finally, Mary finds the videotape of Archie being held up at Pop's by the Black Hood. And like the fake one, the auteur one. And she starts freaking out and he goes ballistic. Which my favorite line from the entire episode is in this scene, which where she goes, we should get this to the sheriff or Betty and Jughead. And I was like, those are your two options. It's either the sheriff or Betty and Jughead, because that's where we are in this world. That Betty and Jughead can solve a mystery better than freaking sheriff. Love that for them. So, and then Archie goes ballistic and he breaks the tape. He goes, no one's ever going to see this again. And he breaks the TV. And then finally his uncle comes in and he goes, hit me. Go ahead. Like, take it out on me. And he's like, you need to let this anger out. And so he starts punching him and he's like bleeding. And Archie just breaks down. And I thought about it. I was like, he never really broke down about Fred's death. He did a little bit, but not like really. So I think it was important for Archie to do that, especially with graduation, which they did mention that maybe he's not graduating, but he has to be graduating. Maybe. I don't know. We will see next week. And then it ends up with Archie ended up writing a letter to ask for leniency for the son, which I think was very good of him and very admirable. And then him and his uncle go to Fred's grave, and that's how the episode ended. And my mom's crying. I have tears in my eyes because it's just so sweet. And that was Archie's storyline, and I think it was one of the best. KJ's acting in this episode was phenomenal. And now we're getting into the good stuff, which is our mystery is solved. And I have some issues that I'm gonna address. First, let's like break down what happened. Then we are going to talk about my issues with how it happened. So Betty gets a phone call on the landline at like 3 a.m. from Brett saying, I need to be transferred to the solitary because I got some insider information that someone's going to try and kill me and I think you would want to know about it. And Betty's like, okay, I'll talk to Veronica because Hiremone's the jail. And then they go in to the prison and Jughead's like, we're here to see Brett Weston Wallace. And he goes, oh, he's dead. The gasp that came out of my mouth and my mom's, we were like, oh, it was almost, I would say it is better than the gasp from last week from when Archie just came out and told Veronica about the kiss. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And it blew my mind. And I was like, this is like the first murder of all of this. And I was like, how, like, this doesn't make sense. Why is this person, because at this time, in my brain, the videotapes is still connected to these murders now murders. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. So I'm going along with the episode, you know. And it gets really creepy, you know. Benny and Jughead are having this conversation with Charles, and, you know, well, you know, we know Brett and David, the video store owner, was having deals. You know, Brett was selling, like, sex tapes to him. And he was like, yeah, so that still leads. And then Charles was like, oh, then David is still our auteur. And he was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then the next thing we see them in is they're back at that cabin, and that David guy is dead. He hung himself, and we're like, okay, that wrapped up nicely in a bow. But I was like, this is beyond weird. And I was sort of on the same mind track as Betty, where Betty was like, this is too neat. Like, there's something is up. And I said the same thing. I was like, I don't know, like, it's too neat for this to be happening, that this random video store owner that we barely know is going to be the one behind everything. It doesn't make sense to me. Then they get another phone call at like 3 in the morning. This time it was Donna, and she's calling Betty saying, people are murdering us, they're after us. First it was Brett, then Joan, and I'm next. And Betty's like, you tried to murder my boyfriend. I'm not having any of this conversation with you. And she hangs up. Then she calls Joan's mom and she goes, oh no, Joan passed away. Like, she was murdered. And Betty was like, oh my God, like, Donna wasn't lying. Like, Joan is dead. Donna's probably next. Like, something is up. Before this, we get a nice little cute scene where we finally see Jughead get into college. And I was crying. I was like, oh, like, baby boy. Like, and FP is so proud of him, and Betty's proud of him, and it was just cute. And they're like, let's just all go to Pop's to celebrate. So they're all leaving, like, the whole family. So FP, Alice, Betty, Jughead, and Jellybean. Then they get a videotape sent to the house, Betty and Jughead's house, and they see that the auteur has now gone inside the house. So that means it wasn't David. It's not any of the Stonewall people. And they go in, and that, like, freaks out FP and Alice. They're like, we're gonna go to the hotel. Like, it goes into Betty and Jughead's room. It goes into Jellybean's room. It puts a knife up to Jellybean's cheek. Like, it was freaky. So they all go. At the hotel, like, Jellybean's asleep, and Betty's like, well, now that her parents are calmed down and Jellybean's asleep, like, this is someone that's close to us. Like, it's someone that was able to listen in. And that's when she figured it out, that it was Charles. She calls Charles over to the house, and Charles admits to it, but he admits to murdering Brett, David, the video store owner, and Joan, and the attempted murder of Donna. But Donna got away. We know that. So that means Donna might come back, which I'm kind of here for, but we'll see. So they find the bugs by the phone. So they know that he was listening in, and he goes, from Halloween on, like, what, like, you were able to hear everything. And Charles was like, Betty, I was doing that to protect you. And Jughead's like, yeah, okay, like, come on. And Betty figured out that he's a serial killer because he has serial killer genes, and he goes, oh, you're so good at, like, recognizing us. And this just came out of left field for me. Here we go. I'm going in with my issues right away. This just came out of left field, that, like, we have all these murders, like, in this one episode, and, like, it's Charles that did this. And they figured out how. He did it with Brett. It was with Chick. They put those two together. So I was like, okay, we tied up that storyline. I just feel like they were trying to tie everything up, which I totally understand, because that's what we all, like, asked for. But I wish it just made a little bit more sense, and it was more, like, spread out. I wish we maybe would have found out about one of the murders last week and it led into this week. But that's just me being picky. So they're finally in the house, and Betty and Jughead are in, you know, their room, and Jughead's, like, typing on the computer, and she's got off on the out with that English. She just got off the phone with Alice saying that they're gonna move back, and Jughead is so sweet in this episode, like, boyfriend of the year. And I'm still annoyed at Betty right now, but digress. He says, your poor mom, like, you know, 2 sons, and Betty goes, yeah, 1 fake and 1 real, and they're both psychopaths. Like, it's crazy. And he just felt bad for her. And then he closes the laptop, and he scoots over, and he goes, how are you doing? And I'm just like, Jughead Jones, ladies and gentlemen, asking the real questions to his girlfriend. How are you doing? And I think it was really important, and it was the best part. And Betty was like, fine, I think. And she was like, of course my brother's a serial killer. Like, and it's true. And I feel like that's so like us, like our fandom. We're just like, of course Betty's brother's a serial killer, along with her father. And she has serial killer genes. I'm just like, yeah, of course that's happening to Betty. And she goes, but there's still one thing like messing with my brain. And Jughead goes, who the auteur is? And she goes, yeah, like, or like the videotapes. And she goes, yeah, like it's really messing with me. She goes, and Jughead's like, yeah, like it makes sense that it would have been Charles. Like he was able to hear our conversations all about how all these things happened. And goes, who else would have had that? And like mid-sentence, he like figured it out in his brain. And the next thing we see him inside Jellybean's room, and is like, Jellybean, I need to ask you a question, and I need you to tell me honestly. And he goes, are you the one sending the videotapes? And she just says, yes. And I freaked out. I was like, I knew it. I called it. I said it. And I just want to say I was right about both. Because I knew Charles and Chick were sus AF. But then Jellybean was getting suspicious. And I was like, oh my God. I thought they were working together maybe at one point this morning. Like this morning I was running through all my theories. And I was like, no. Jellybean's the auteur. Charles and Chick, there's something else happening. And I ended up being right. So I'm very proud of myself. Very, very proud. It took me a while. It took me a lot of reading and a lot of research from other people to do that, to get to this. But once we get the explanation of why it's Jellybean, it made sense. And it came to commercial. My mom goes, so why or I think Jack had asked why. And it cuts to commercial, and my mom goes, why? Like, why do you think? And I go, easy. She didn't want them to leave. And my mom goes, you think? I was like, absolutely. So then we get this really cute scene with FP and Jughead. It's not that cute because, like, it's sad. But FP and Jughead and it was just so weird, like, him saying, like, I thought you would want to do this over drinks. I'm like, 1, your father's a former alcoholic. 2, you're, like, 18. What is legal here? And 3, I'm like, you're gonna be an alcoholic in like 2 weeks. Like, don't worry. But I digress. We will get back to that later. So he tells FP, and FP's like, what, you're kidding? And he goes, no. And he goes, and it actually makes sense. And he goes, think about the first videotape. And then that is when I actually put it together. I put it together at that moment where the first videotape was sent when Jughead was at Stonewall. And then it kept getting more and more. And I even said in my brain, I was like, oh, maybe when we first saw the like video of Jellybean with the knife, like in the promo, I was like, maybe it's Ricky helping her. And then it ended up being that her and Ricky were part of it. And he goes through videotape by videotape. And then once the outside houses weren't doing it for Jughead, like he was not staying, you know, he was still going to Stonewall, he was still applying to colleges, that's when she said, why don't we do this? And then the first one of the masks was when Jughead was of Betty and Jughead, and he said she knew that would get my attention. And it's true, because as Penny said in season 2, all snakes have an underbelly, and Betty is Jughead's. 1000%. He will do anything to protect that girl. And to me, it's admirable. But, and then, you know, then going on, and he read, she stuck on the laptop and read the story. And I even said that. I was like, oh my God, she probably read the story. And it made sense. And she heard all the other ones, and she saw the videos of the Blossom murders and Midge's murder at the video store because someone sold it to them, to the video store. Jughead said something so serious, and it was, I don't think Jellybean understands the darkness that this is. And I think that it was very important for him to say that, because as he said, like, that whole family has darkness. It has to do with being a serpent and being able to kill people. And, you know, this was just she thought she was being innocent and having fun. And she just wanted her brother to stay. And she knew that he would stay for a mystery, like, especially if it involved someone trying to hurt Betty or anyone he loved. But I think it's very important that he said that. And I think it's really important that he just went to FP like that instead of being like he really cares for Jellybean, and he wanted to make sure that she was safe and that she was going to be okay. And that's where I say Jughead Jones is brother and boyfriend of the year. And then FP goes home and like just hugs Jellybean's like, and she's just like, I'm so sorry. And he goes, it's okay. It's okay, baby girl. Like, you know, and I think that's what Jellybean needed. Jellybean just needs help. You know, she needs to like talk to someone. Everyone on this show still needs to talk to someone, but that's besides the point. So yeah, that was the episode. I loved it. I thought it was very good. Wraps up everything nicely. And then next week we have graduation. We know we're going to have 2 really emotional scenes with Betty and Jughead, which are going to make me sob. We have the first one is from the promo. They're going to have a very intense sex scene, which I'm here for. And then in this week's promo, she said, like, what's going to happen with us. So all I'm hoping is that she tells Jughead. I don't think she will, and it's making me so mad. But at the same time, I'm kind of living for her not telling Jughead and him finding out over the time jump, whether it happens after the time jump or during the time jump and we don't see it. And he kind of, and that gives us more angst between them for them to get back together. I hope we get really good Buckhead angst. That's just all I'm hoping for in like the next few weeks. Well, not next week, but then starting episode 4 on, I want us to get really good angst. And I would love for them to get back together at the end of the season. I think that would give me excellent exes to lovers. So next week is graduation. And we know FP is leaving. And we saw a picture of Jellybean having Jughead's helmet. It has the crown etched on it. So I think that makes it great that Jellybean was the auteur, so that way he can leave and get her help. Maybe she needs her mom, maybe, you know, something like that. So I think that's really good. And we're gonna have those emotional scenes. But I'm ready for this time jump. I think it's gonna be amazing. I hope that it's like everything that we have wanted in this, for them to be adults, and I think they're just gonna serve the best energy in this 7-year time jump. I hope so. Something else I wanted to talk about with this episode was that this was the first episode filmed after quarantine, which means this was the first episode filmed where Cole and Lily were not together. And I hope this proves to everyone out there that they are professionals and they are actors and they are doing their job, and you could not even tell a difference. And I don't want people to go out there and be like, this person thinks that they're still together, blah, 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 because I don't. I wholeheartedly believe that they did break up. Whether they get back together in the future, that's on them. I hope they keep it private and they keep it to themselves and they live their best life. But I need all these other people to stop being like, Buckhead only got together because of Cole and Lily's relationship. Like, no, that's not what happened. Like, from what we know, they didn't get together until after Betty and Jughead were together on the show. So that does not register to me. But I just wanted to address that and my feelings on it before, you know, people are like, what did you think of Cole and Lily? Like, did you think that shoulder kiss was them, or was that Betty and Jughead? Like, they're actors. They're actors who had a long relationship with each other, and they still have to have a relationship on the show. They're gonna bring aspects of themselves in there. It's inevitable. Like, it just happens. Like, I am in a relationship almost as long as Cole and Lily's was. Like, length and like when like got together. So it's really fascinating to me, like, that people are like out of their minds. Well, that is the end of this video. Please let me know what else you want to see on this channel. I think one of my next videos is going to be one of those tier videos where it's going to be like literally like best character, like the tiers of characters, with the last one being like the bear, maybe. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna go through all the characters, and I think that will maybe give you guys an insight of who I like on this show, even if I haven't made it obvious. But yeah, I never really talked about how I got into the show, so I think maybe that'll be a cute little video next week. But if there's anything else you want to see, or I don't know, if you want to see anything else in these videos, like if you want me to film myself in my reactions, like let me know. Like, please tell me. That's the only way I'll be able to change these videos, is if you guys tell me what you want to see. Please share this video and subscribe and like it. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. My Twitter handle and one of my Instagrams is the same, so it's CATTHERINEROSEE. It's right there. And my second Instagram is called Stay Weird Reactions. That's where you can find all of my Riverdale content. And then another video I want to do is I'm going to compile all the pictures that people posted this week of when the pilot was filmed, and I want to go through them and just reminisce and talk about the pilot and how much that all meant to me. So if you want to see that, that's going to probably come maybe Friday or Saturday, or maybe next Monday. I'm going to film it on Friday, and then make sure you follow my Instagram to know exactly when it's going to go up, because I will know then. Once again, that Instagram will be Stay Weird Reactions. That is where all video information goes. My personal Instagram is Catherine Rose, 2 T's, 2 E's at the end. And make sure you subscribe here. All of that social stuff will be in the bottom. And I think that is it. So once again, make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video, and follow me on all the things. And as always,